The New Orleans Pelicans are a team with one of the brightest possible futures in store for them. This is a surprise considering that in the 2018-2019 season, the New Orleans Pelicans were struggling to deal with their disgruntled superstar player Anthony Davis and his wishes to be traded to another team. This led to a number of moments in that year that Pelicans ownership and fans may want to forget. Moments including Anthony Davis being fined for publicly demanding a trade, very public back and forth trade talks on a potential deal between the Lakers and the Pelicans, Anthony Davis petitioning to the NBA and forcing the Pelicans to play him after they had already chosen to sit him out as they searched for a deal, and culminating in the firing of their general manager Dell Demps after the trade deadline, having not reached a deal to ship out Anthony Davis. So, how does a team having faced these issues turn it around in as soon as one offseason? Well, in comes David Griffin. On April 17, 2019, he was officially hired as the Executive Vice President of Basketball Operations for the New Orleans Pelicans. How did he turn this gloomy situation around? And what qualified him to receive this job? Allow me to tell you an NBA blurb about David Griffin. David Griffin was born November 16, 1973 in Phoenix, Arizona. After graduating high school, he enrolled at the University of Arizona but transferred to Arizona State University in 1993 to take up an opportunity to intern with the at the time Charles Barkley-led Phoenix Suns organization in the Public Relations Department. David Griffin spent 17 seasons in total working with the Phoenix Suns, starting out as just an intern and eventually working his way up to being hired as a full-time media relations assistant after just 3 years of being there. He was notably skilled and very detail-oriented in his work, and it paid off. He was noticed by the Phoenix Suns team owner Jerry Colangelo and then coach Danny Ainge for his detailed and studious work for the media. From there, David Griffin joined the Phoenix Suns basketball operations in 1997, focusing on statistical analysis, draft and free agency information, and overall game preparatory knowledge. As he continued his strong demonstration of his knowledge and work ethic, he had continued to rise the ranks, eventually becoming Assistant General Manager of Player Personnel, Director of Personnel, and ultimately, in 2007, receiving a promotion to Senior Vice President of Basketball Operations for the Phoenix Suns, a position in which he held for 3 years until 2010. Over the time David Griffin spent with the Phoenix Suns, they saw great success, winning nearly 65% of all the games they played in the stretch from 1997 until 2010, which saw many great players such as Charles Barkley, Jason Kidd, Steve Nash, Shawn Marion, Amari Stoudemire, and more play for the team. This success and the reputation David Griffin had built for himself left him with the credentials as a bright mind in the basketball community. In 2007, the legendary Jerry West himself handpicked Griffin as his replacement for the Memphis Grizzlies GM position, but Griffin turned down the offer as he was greatly interested in trying to win a title with his hometown franchise, the Phoenix Suns. This thought process continued in 2008 as he turned down an opportunity with the Milwaukee Bucks and again in 2010 with the Denver Nuggets. In September of 2010, the Cleveland Cavaliers were experiencing the fallout of LeBron James's decision to leave the Cavaliers to join the Miami Heat, and with this, the Cleveland Cavaliers began dismantling much of their staff. Cavaliers head coach Mike Brown was fired, his assistants were dismissed, and general manager Danny Ferry stepped down, allowing for his prior assistant Chris Grant to be promoted and replace Ferry as general manager of the Cavaliers, and also sent out an offer to none other than David Griffin. David Griffin finally accepted this offer from the Cavaliers and was hired away from the Suns and named Vice President of Basketball Operations for the Cleveland Cavaliers. From there, general manager Chris Grant tried to oversee the rebuilding process of the Cleveland Cavaliers, making some marginal moves such as trading Delonte West and Sebastian Telfair for Ramon Sessions and Ryan Hollins, but also some great ones, such as the trade that sent Mo Williams and Jamario Moon to the Los Angeles Clippers for former All-Star Baron Davis and an unprotected 2011 first-round pick, which we'll mention further in just a second. In the 2010-2011 season, to say the Cleveland Cavaliers struggled was an understatement. They finished the year with the league's second worst record of 19 wins and 63 losses, second to only the Minnesota Timberwolves with 17 wins. The Cavaliers also in this year had a bad streak of luck where they lost 26 games straight, setting an all-time record for the NBA. Going into the 2011 NBA Draft Lottery, the Cleveland Cavaliers were in excellent position to receive a high pick based simply on their record, but that wasn't all. Despite getting nice play from their first overall pick, Blake Griffin, the Los Angeles Clippers had struggled a bit that season too, and finished 8th worst in the league at a record of 32-50. The draft lottery was concluded, and it was revealed that the unprotected first-round pick that the Los Angeles Clippers had traded earlier to the Cleveland Cavaliers was the pick that jumped to number 1, landing the Cleveland Cavaliers their first number 1 pick since LeBron James. In the 2011 NBA Draft, the Cavaliers selected Kyrie Irving as their number 1 pick and Tristan Thompson with their own pick that had landed at number 4. In the lockout-shortened 2011-2012 NBA season, the Cavaliers continued to rebuild around these new players, continuing to make trades for first-round picks and players that they felt were complementary to Irving and Thompson. They finished that year with 21 wins and 45 losses and got the 4th pick in the 2012 NBA Draft, picking guard Dion Waiters and making a trade for Tyler Zeller at number 17. This time, in 2012-2013, the Cavaliers were hoping for real growth and progress from their young players. However, they continued to struggle, finishing 3rd worst in the league with a record of 24 wins and 58 losses. This led to the Cavaliers firing their head coach Byron Scott, who had been with the team since David Griffin was hired back in 2010, and he was replaced by his returning predecessor, Mike Brown. In the 2013 NBA Draft Lottery, David Griffin and the Cavaliers found success once more, winning the draft lottery by jumping up 2 places to the first overall pick. However, as great of luck as it was, this pick will live on in infamy as potentially the worst first overall pick in NBA history.
The Cleveland Cavaliers select Anthony Bennett of Toronto, Canada, and the University of Nevada, Las Vegas.
The Cavaliers stunned the NBA landscape by selecting forward Anthony Bennett with the first overall pick, a player that had been widely mocked to go in the 7 to even as low as 15 range, while leaving options such as Nerlens Noel and Victor Oladipo at the very top of the board. They also added Sergei Karasev and signed free agents Earl Clark and Jarrett Jack in free agency. 2013 was a somewhat weird year for David Griffin and the Cavaliers. They also signed center Andrew Bynum to a 1-year contract. He was coming off of an extremely odd situation, having been traded from the Lakers a few years prior to the Philadelphia 76ers in the deal that sent Dwight Howard to the Lakers. Bynum had a number of injuries, including a purported injury caused by bowling that left him never playing a game in his 2 years for the Philadelphia 76ers. After only playing in 24 games for the Cavaliers with less than stellar numbers and production, the Cavs traded Bynum, 2 second-round picks, and a protected first-round pick to the Chicago Bulls for 2-time All-Star Luol Deng. Overall, the Cavaliers only marginally improved in the 2013-2014 NBA season despite adding new talent. First overall pick Anthony Bennett only played in 52 games, having an average of 4 points and 3 rebounds on 35% shooting. On February 6, 2014, the Cavaliers announced that general manager Chris Grant had been fired and that David Griffin would now serve as GM, eventually promoting him to the full-time position. His first move was firing Mike Brown from the Cavaliers for the second time, as the Cavaliers finished the season with a record of 33 wins and 49 losses, good for 9th worst in the league. Griffin later hired renowned European coach David Blatt as the replacement head coach. In the 2014 NBA Draft Lottery, in what seems to be a recurring theme for David Griffin, the Cavaliers and David Griffin had some insane luck. With just a 1.7% chance, they jumped 9 spots to land the first overall pick once again, their 3rd in 4 years, the same 4 years that David Griffin had been with the team. A few weeks after landing the first overall pick, it was revealed by LeBron James in an essay written for Sports Illustrated that he'd be intending to return to his hometown team, the Cleveland Cavaliers. In the 2014 NBA Draft, the Cavaliers selected the, at the time, highly sought-after prospect Andrew Wiggins, many whom thought he had the potential to be the next big superstar in the NBA. But it wasn't clear if the Cavaliers had actually expected to keep Andrew Wiggins. Since LeBron James' signing, it had been speculated repeatedly that they had intended to swing a trade including Andrew Wiggins for another star to pair with LeBron James and their 2011 first pick, Kyrie Irving. In August 2014, David Griffin pulled it off. He traded Anthony Bennett, Andrew Wiggins, and a 2015 Miami first-round pick, and a 3-team deal with the Minnesota Timberwolves and Philadelphia 76ers for Kevin Love, an extremely talented power forward coming off of a season averaging 26 points and 12.5 rebounds per game. With their luck having shown and their rebuild seemingly complete, David Griffin's Cavalier team had lofty expectations of being a title contender for the foreseeable future. However, the 2014-2015 NBA season started off with an extremely shaky start for the Cavaliers. They started the season with a record of 19 wins and 16 losses. David Blatt's coaching was immediately being highly questioned, and it had seemed that the big three of James, Irving, and Love seemingly couldn't work together. In an attempt to save the season, David Griffin made some surprising moves, trading Dion Waiters to the Oklahoma City Thunder in return for J.R. Smith and Iman Shumpert. 2 days later, he gave up 2 future first-round picks to the Denver Nuggets for center Timofey Mozgov. The Cavaliers over this time had, however, bottomed out at a record of 19 wins and 20 losses, but seemed to instantly recover after Griffin's moves and finished the season on a 32-9 run. They entered the NBA playoffs for the first time in 5 years as a second seed with the record of 53 wins and 29 losses. Now clicking and on a roll, they stormed through the Eastern Conference, sweeping the Boston Celtics in the first round, defeating Chicago in 6 games in the second, and sweeping Atlanta in the conference finals to claim the franchise's second ever conference title and a berth in the NBA Finals to face the Golden State Warriors, led by Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green. The Cavaliers had up to this point been in great position to win it all, but were faced with debilitating injuries all throughout the playoffs. Kevin Love dislocated his shoulder in a seemingly not so innocent exchange with Kelly Olynyk in the first round and was out for the playoffs. In Game 1 of the 2015 NBA Finals, Kyrie Irving fractured his left kneecap, causing him to be out for the rest of the series. LeBron James managed to lead the Cavaliers to a 2-1 series lead, but just couldn't support the team enough as they sorely missed the other 2 of their big 3. They eventually fell in 6 games to the 2015 champions, the Golden State Warriors. Entering the 2015-16 season, David Griffin's Cavaliers sought nothing but redemption. Kevin Love was re-signed to a 5-year, $110 million contract to stay with the Cavaliers, and most of the players on the team were retained as they looked to show the NBA what they could really do. Re-signing J.R. Smith to a 2-year, $10 million deal, Iman Shumpert to a 4-year, $40 million deal, and eventually 2011 4th overall pick Tristan Thompson to a 5-year, $82 million contract. Despite this redemption season and the urgency to prove themselves, the year was not without its controversies, ultimately headlined by David Griffin's mid-season decision to fire head coach David Blatt, despite the fact that the Cleveland Cavaliers were sitting neatly atop the Eastern Conference with a record of 30 wins and 11 losses. Griffin stated, "Sometimes you can win games in this league in the regular season and get worse. We were regressing over a period of time. I'm in our locker room a lot, and I knew that there was just a disconnect in there right now. There's a lack of spirit and connectedness that I just couldn't accept. And frankly, halfway through the season, I think we have the time to right the ship. I know that sounds crazy when we're sitting with a 30-11 record, I understand that, but we were 30-11 with a schedule that was reasonably easy, and I'm judging a lot more than wins and losses." Assistant coach Tyronn Lue was then promoted as permanent head coach due to his great ability in maintaining trust in the locker room and handling the egos of players, as well as a few deft coaching decisions. The Cavaliers finished the season still atop the Eastern Conference with a record of 57 wins and 25 losses. They once again stormed through the first 3 rounds of the 2016 NBA playoffs with ease, sweeping the Detroit Pistons in the first round, sweeping the Atlanta Hawks in the second round, and defeating the Toronto Raptors in the Eastern Conference Finals in 6 games. Once again, they faced the Golden State Warriors in the NBA Finals. Only this time, the Warriors finished this year with the NBA's best record in NBA history. 73 wins and 9 losses, and having already gone 16-6 in the playoffs. The Warriors made it look as though it was going to be an easy championship for them, as they took the first 2 games of the final series with ease, winning by a margin of 24 points. The Cavaliers showed signs of life, however, winning the 3rd game in a 30-point blowout before dropping the 4th game again to the Warriors. Now down 3-1, the Cavaliers were in a tough spot. No finals team had ever in history come back from a 3-1 deficit in the NBA. One more loss, and that's it. The Cleveland Cavaliers weren't ready to go home, however, and they showed it, winning Game 5 behind LeBron James and Kyrie Irving, both of them scoring 41 points to defeat the Warriors, the first time teammates had ever achieved such a scoring feat together in a finals game. In Game 6, LeBron James kept up the pressure, dropping yet another 41-point game to ensure victory for the Cleveland Cavaliers. And so there it was, Game 7 at Oracle Arena in Oakland. Could the Cleveland Cavaliers pull off an upset and win the first title in Cavaliers history? It went down to the wire, neck and neck, very intense. With 4 minutes and 39 seconds to go, the game was tied at 89 apiece. No team could score on each other. For the next nearly 4 minutes, the teams went back and forth, desperately trying to score and gain an advantage and the lead. LeBron James flying down the court faster than I've probably ever seen him go to block Andre Iguodala's chances at putting the Warriors up, which is now referred to simply as the block. Finally, with 53 seconds left in the game, Kyrie Irving fades away and drills a 3-point shot in Stephen Curry's face to put the Cavaliers up 3. The Warriors tried as desperately as they could, but they couldn't overcome the stifling Cleveland defense and fell, losing the series to the Cavaliers, having already been up 3-1. The Cleveland Cavaliers and David Griffin won their first championship in team history in such dramatic fashion, and the first championship in Cleveland major sports history in 52 years. David Griffin described it saying, "This team won the only way they could. Loud, noisy, record-breaking, and history-making." He described winning the championship after his journey over his 23 years to that point in the NBA as simply overwhelming, and that he felt honored to be able to have witnessed what the Cavaliers had pulled off. But, sadly, the excitement didn't last that long for the Cavaliers. Immediately, questions started bombarding the team and raising on Kevin Love's future with the team. Was he fit for the team? Did the Cavaliers play better with him on the bench? David Griffin tried to assure reporters and the media, saying, "We intend to keep this group together and see what we're capable of," though he did admit that their team wasn't built particularly well for playing Golden State, the only foreseeable main competition going forward. And the drama only continued. In the 2016-2017 NBA season, the Cavaliers were extremely troubled by injuries and unexpected losses. LeBron had described it as possibly one of the strangest years of his career and felt the Cavaliers were too top-heavy after dropping some games late in the year. The team's lineup was constantly changing as a result of these injuries, and it led to purported chemistry issues and a lack of camaraderie across the board. Despite these setbacks, however, the Cavaliers managed to finish the year as a second seed with a record of 51-31, losing their last 4 games to close out the season. Another bright spot in this season, however, was David Griffin's decision to ship out Mike Dunleavy, Mo Williams, and a 2019 first-round pick for sharpshooter Kyle Korver. And despite the drama and the down season, the Cavaliers once again rolled through the playoffs, sweeping the Indiana Pacers, Toronto Raptors, and beating the Boston Celtics in just 5 games to earn their 3rd straight berth to the NBA Finals. They even posted the best offensive efficiency in postseason history on their way to the finals. But this year, it was different for the Cavaliers. They once again had to go up against the Golden State Warriors. But in the offseason, the NBA had a huge television deal go into effect, and the cap space soared for teams across the board. This allowed a 73-win Golden State Warriors team to suddenly have the space for a max contract free agent. And they signed somebody worthy of it. adding MVP Kevin Durant to their already extremely talented roster. With a roster featuring the Splash Brothers, Draymond Green, Kevin Durant, Andre Iguodala, and supporting pieces, the Cavaliers were just no match, quickly going down 3-0. Their only bright side was taking Game 4 from the Warriors, stopping them from having a perfect postseason record, despite the fact that the Warriors had already obtained the best postseason record in NBA history. The Warriors finished the Cavaliers off in 5 games, winning their second championship in 3 years. This point marks the end for the David Griffin era Cleveland Cavaliers. After the disappointing and rough finals loss, it was announced on June 19, 2017, that David Griffin and the Cavaliers would not renew their contract together after no agreement between the two could be reached. He would then be replaced by his assistant general manager, Kobe Altman. David Griffin watched from a distance as the team he had a big hand in helping create fall apart. Kyrie Irving requested a trade and was dealt that year to the Boston Celtics. In reflection, David Griffin stated he felt the reason Kyrie had requested this trade was more or less due to the feelings of not being the number 1 option compared to LeBron James. He described it in an interview with The Ringer's Bill Simmons as one of the biggest failures of his time in Cleveland, that he couldn't grow the relationship between Kyrie Irving and LeBron James to a level of individual accountability where they felt that beholden to each other. Later on, in a 2019 Sports Illustrated article, David Griffin candidly talked further about building that LeBron James-led Cavaliers team, stating, "Everything we did was so inorganic and unsustainable and, frankly, not fun. I was miserable. Literally, the moment we won the championship, I knew I was gonna leave. There was no way I was gonna stay for any amount of money." Griffin also mentioned that he privately wept the night the Cavaliers won the title, saying he was so obsessed with winning that he reportedly didn't love the game anymore, as he was too focused on the outcome rather than the game itself. The Cavaliers continued on without David Griffin, making it once again to the NBA Finals and losing again to the Golden State Warriors in 4 games, and capped off by watching LeBron James leave in free agency to the Los Angeles Lakers. David Griffin oversaw some of the roughest years of Cavaliers history and had a hand in helping it grow to a team that had made the NBA Finals in 4 straight years. Not a shabby executive stretch by any means. During his time away from the front offices of an NBA team, he rediscovered his passion for the NBA as he looked on. The wishes to help turn the tides on a franchise returned, and the memories created and left from Cleveland gave Griffin his next ideal situation in his mind. In 2019, the New Orleans Pelicans were riddled with drama and issues. In January of 2019, Pelicans superstar player Anthony Davis publicly requested a trade, which led to him getting fined for not keeping matters private. This led to a season-long and heavily talked about situation revolving around Pelicans GM Dell Demps, Anthony Davis, and quite frequently, Magic Johnson, LeBron James, and the Los Angeles Lakers. After the trade deadline came and passed with no deal for the Pelicans' Anthony Davis, including turning down a supposed offer from the Lakers, which reportedly included Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, Kyle Kuzma, and at least 2 future first-round picks, the Pelicans were disgruntled with the leadership displayed by Dell Demps and fired him. The Pelicans rattled off an uninspiring season finish, settling with a record of 33 wins and 49 losses, good for 7th worst in the league. The person they brought on to replace the fired Dell Demps? David Griffin. In mid-April 2019, David Griffin was officially announced as Executive Vice President of Basketball Operations for the New Orleans Pelicans. He said, "I'm very excited to join the Pelicans organization as Executive Vice President of Basketball Operations. One of the things that makes this job so attractive to me is Mrs. Benson's, Pelicans owner, willingness to provide any and all resources needed to compete for championships. This is a tremendous opportunity to build something special in New Orleans, and I firmly believe it begins with great ownership along with a very strong leadership team. I look forward to creating with Alvin Gentry and his staff on building a robust basketball culture in New Orleans." And build he did. On May 14, 2019, David Griffin watched firsthand as the New Orleans Pelicans won big time at the 2019 NBA Draft Lottery. At 7th place in the lottery and just a 6% chance of winning, they defied the odds and jumped 6 spots to land the first overall pick. a big-time asset, as the consensus #1 pick in 2019 would be 280-pound, uber-athletic power forward Zion Williamson. David Griffin described it as a positive event for New Orleans, one that he only hopes to continue to stack together with more. Later in May of 2019, he met privately with Anthony Davis to consult him and see if working on a relationship between the superstar and the team was still a possibility, as he wanted to pair the #1 pick and Anthony Davis together, not seek a trade. Ultimately, however, it was revealed that Anthony Davis still had a strict desire to be traded and separate from the New Orleans Pelicans. 1 month later, David Griffin made his move, trading Anthony Davis to the Los Angeles Lakers for Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, Josh Hart, 3 first-round picks, including the #4 pick in the 2019 NBA Draft. David Griffin then packaged and flipped the #4 pick acquired in the trade with Solomon Hill in his huge contract, the 57th pick, and a future second to the Atlanta Hawks in exchange for the 8th, 17th, and 35th picks in 2019. Griffin also traded the 39th pick in the draft to the Golden State Warriors in exchange for 2 future second-round picks. David Griffin then traded those 2 picks to the Utah Jazz as a sign-and-trade for power forward Derek Favors. With the #1 overall pick, David Griffin selected Zion Williamson in the 2019 NBA Draft. At 8th, he selected high-flying, super-athletic center Jackson Hayes. With the 17th pick, he selected tall, long, and talented point guard Nickeil Alexander-Walker. And at number 35, he took Didi Louzada, a 6'5" shooting guard from Brazil. Overall, it was an extremely productive draft, gaining the consensus #1 overall player, a high-flying and extremely promising center, and a talented all-around point guard was an extreme and immediate boost to this Pelicans rebuild. Overall, David Griffin turned Anthony Davis and a second-round pick into Jackson Hayes, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Didi Louzada, Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, Josh Hart, Derek Favors, a 2020 Cavaliers protected first-round pick from the Hawks, a 2021 protected first-round pick from the Lakers, a 2023 unprotected pick swap option with the Lakers, and a 2024 first-round pick from the Lakers with the ability to delay it to 2025. In a single off-season of rebuilding, David Griffin turned one of the most bleak-looking situations in the NBA to one of great excitement, hope, and encouragement for the future. In free agency of 2019, the Pelicans also added sharpshooter JJ Redick to this core, which adds great mentorship for these young players and a talented shooting guard, as well as retaining a good shooter in Darius Miller. And now, as the Pelicans look to the future, they're in an incredibly good position. With all their future picks still at their disposal and a flurry of extra picks from other teams around the league to add to their team of young and promising players, they have the potential to grow the New Orleans Pelicans into something special. Will they achieve it? That's yet to be seen. But it was made possible by the work of David Griffin, a man who has since 1997 shown the analytical skill, decision-making, team operating, and nearly every essential that you may need to properly run an NBA organization and lead a team to success. I wish nothing but the best to David Griffin and the New Orleans Pelicans. Let's see if he can be the one to yet again build the next team to make multiple championship runs. And that was an NBA blurb about David Griffin. Thanks for watching.